Over a decade since Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 disappeared into thin air, artificial intelligence has done what human searches never could, and what it has discovered has left scientists agog. In a breakthrough moment, new AI models combing through thousands of satellite photographs and oceanic records have discovered possible wreckage in a place that goes against prior search reason. Could it finally solve aviation's biggest mystery, or pose even more spine-chilling questions? The MH370 saga started like any ordinary red-eye flight. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 departed Kuala Lumpur International Airport shortly after midnight for Beijing. The plane was a Boeing 777-200ER, one of the most dependable commercial aircraft operating, with 239 human beings aboard from 14 nations, including families, honeymooning couples, and grizzled business travelers. At the helm was Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a seasoned pilot with over 18,000 flying hours. All seemed normal, until it did not. Approximately 40 minutes into the flight, at 1:21 a.m., MH370 disappeared from civilian radar. No mayday. No distress call. 1 second the aircraft was flying smoothly at 35,000 feet over the South China Sea, and then nothing. Air traffic control attempted to recontact them, but there was nothing. Later, military radar disclosed a strange twist. Instead of heading north into China, the plane had turned hard west, flying back over the Malay Peninsula, then turned south over the immense Indian Ocean, and vanished. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Spark Science, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. The disappearance set off the greatest and costliest search effort in aviation history. In the following few years, 26 nations participated in the search, sending submarines, satellites, drones, and deep-sea ships. The Indian Ocean was searched, outlying islands checked, and the world's attention for a while rested on a solitary band of sea west of Australia called the Seventh Arc, where specialists presumed that the plane had at last exhausted its fuel supply and crashed into the ocean. Nothing was seen. Though hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent and over 120,000 square kilometers of ocean bottom searched, the official investigation, headed by the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, was halted in January 2017. Yet another private search in 2018 conducted by the American company Ocean Infinity also failed to turn up anything concrete. The wreckage had disappeared so utterly, so enigmatically, that even experienced investigators were unable to make head or tail of it. Bits of wreckage ultimately washed ashore in the western Indian Ocean, pieces of the wing, cabin panels, and other identified sections of MH370. But without the fuselage or the black boxes, nobody could know with absolute certainty what had caused the crash or where it had actually happened. This void for information spawned an avalanche of theories. Some cited catastrophic mechanical failure, possibly instantaneous decompression, a fire, or a malfunction that made the crew unconscious as autopilot took control until fuel ran out. Others inclined toward more nefarious concepts, that Captain Zahari had intentionally diverted the aircraft in a premeditated act of pilot suicide. The theory gained fuel when it was reported that a flight simulator at his house had an identical route. Some other options were hijacking, terrorism, military intervention, or even cyber attacks. Rumors of government cover-ups and covert missions spread, with some even asserting that the plane was intercepted or even concealed in Central Asia. None of these speculations provided answers, though. For the 239's families, the enigma was not mental, it was a fresh wound. The lack of information, remains, or closure suspended grief in time. Each rumor was a flicker of hope, each silence a betrayal. MH370 was a ghost not just of a plane but of trust, of certainty, of control. How did a world bridged by GPS, satellites, and real-time monitoring lose a giant airliner and confess it? And yet below the surface and in terabytes of forgotten data, something remained to be discovered. When the world threw in the towel, artificial intelligence was on the verge of kicking in. When MH370 vanished, everybody thought it would be spotted within a week. In an era of satellites and radar, it seemed inconceivable to lose a commercial airliner. But the southern Indian Ocean, where the aircraft was thought to have crashed, is one of the remotest, most inhospitable, and least charted places on the planet. The swells stand over 20 feet tall, currents wind in impossible directions, and the ocean floor is an alien world of ridges, trenches, and seamounts. Parts of it had never been mapped prior to 2014. The search operations used sonar, autonomous underwater vehicles, and remote-operated robots, but the process was laborious, costly, and based on human assumptions. Researchers used satellite handshakes, data pings between MH370 and an Inmarsat satellite, to chart the plane's final arc. But it was difficult to interpret those pings, based on Doppler shifts, fuel calculations, and assumptions about how planes tend to fly. That is, the search rested on educated guesses. Adding to the complexity, hundreds of thousands of satellite images had been taken in the first weeks after the disappearance, but they were never properly examined. Human experts just couldn't sort through them all. It would take years to process that amount of imagery, and even so the human eye might not detect subtle anomalies buried within the waves. That's where AI came in. By 2021, artificial intelligence was transforming medicine, translation, and battlefield surveillance. Neural networks were identifying illegal logging, climate change, and even slight changes in satellite imagery missed by humans. So researchers wondered, what if AI might search for MH370? A number of groups worked behind the scenes to train AI models on tens of thousands of photos of airplane debris, sea trash, and satellite images. These models weren't searching for a perfect image of an airplane, they were trained to find unnatural wave signatures, reflective inconsistencies, or hints at shadowy submerged masses. One such model, based on convolutional neural networks, was given terabytes of past satellite imagery to learn how the ocean's surface acts when there is something large beneath it. Soon, it began raising flags on previously undetected anomalies. Everything changed in 2023. The AI pointed out an unusual group of geometric shadows under the waves just beyond the previously scoped area. It had a 92% confidence rating, and it looked more than coincidence. Another model independently verified it, recognizing fuselage curvature and a fragment consistent with Boeing 777 wing dimensions. Reflectivity signatures in one frame resembled a vertical stabilizer, the tail fin, half buried in silt. Instantly, the wreck that had haunted humans for almost a decade had a digital signature. This discovery wasn't made by governments or billion-dollar ships. It was made by algorithms, programmed to look for patterns where humans looked for blank ocean. Unlike humans, the AI didn't fatigue, didn't guess, didn't rule out oddities. It raked through tens of millions of pixels, sensing disturbances beyond human visibility. Previous AI efforts had been blunt, but this new system was educated not merely on plain pictures but on simulations of the way wreckage acts over years underwater. It studied how metal rusts, how things drift, how sediment buries detritus, and how light bends through waves. Deep in April 2014 satellite imagery archives, the AI spotted a long, curved object resembling an aircraft fuselage, submerged partially and in pieces. In images that overlapped, it spotted consistency, a likely wing separate in close proximity, and a pale discoloration echoing a vertical stabilizer extending from sediment. This wasn't wishful pattern matching, it was a computerized autopsy of the ocean. Experts had compared ocean drift models and discovered they fit the timing exactly had MH370 descended into the water in a controlled manner. The location was a mere 80 kilometers northeast of the 2018 Ocean Infinity search area, just beyond where sonar had mapped. The seafloor there is hilly, a sonar nightmare, which created interference that previously led analysts to rule out the area as inconclusive. Now it seemed the wreckage had broken up and slid down a slope, burying itself in part. The AI breakthrough aroused skepticism, then wonder. Independent experts, oceanographers, and engineers confirmed the results. The debris field appeared to be in accordance with controlled ditching, rather than a random crash. Some experts even posited the fuselage could be intact enough to retain the flight data recorders or even human bodies, preserved by cold deep-sea conditions. Forensic experts estimated that clothing, electronics, and vital instruments might survive. Marine specialists validated the stability of the site and low sedimentation, allowing recovery. The implications ran deep. If proven true, the find would not only crack the case of MH370's whereabouts but reignite arguments about why it occurred. The position of the wreckage indicated the aircraft could have glided for dozens of kilometers, suggesting there was conscious control right up to the end. That rekindled the contentious pilot suicide hypothesis. Others questioned whether the controlled crash was a deliberate ditching to cover up evidence. Legal and political issues hung in the balance as well, since the wreck is off international waters, creating questions about rights of salvage and expedition authority.